All right, there we go. Yes, we are live on Facebook as well. Hi, Facebook people. Robert saying audio is good. Hi, Robert. Thank you for saying that. Wow, we have so many people on Facebook. Okay. By the way, the title that you're seeing on screen right now, I know there's a mistype on it. It's not cark, it's car. That's the independent. It's not our fault, but we get to it. But let's see on YouTube. People on YouTube, tell us how the audio is. Okay, I'll see Casey, Atheist on YouTube, Mars. Yep, another godless atheist, Beach. Greetings. Okay, we're ready to go. Ali.
All right, first news is out of China. China is building car parks and playgrounds over Uighur Muslim graveyards to eradicate ethnic groups' identity. This is absolutely terrible. We've been reporting on this for years, what China is doing to the Uighur Muslims in their area. They're wiping out them in concentration camps and everything else. So now, on top of that, they're going through their cemeteries and graveyards. They're completely wiping them out. China has said that they are removing the bodies to other places. However, people who have seen them digging up these cemeteries to create parks, playgrounds, car parks, they're actually seeing bits of human remains left behind. So we don't actually know what is going on with the remains of the people who are buried there before. And yeah, so they're doing this as a way to just completely wipe the people out altogether, dead and alive. And this is absolutely just horrifying. The United States has stepped forward and said that there will be travel bans going on for all the Chinese officials who are in charge of this. However, we'll see that when we get to it.
Finally, the United States is doing something because I mean it's too little, it's too little, too late, but it's better late than never. And it's actually United States is right now at least the only country that is taking a position against China, but it's very late. I wish they did this a little bit more, and I wish right now they did something stronger. But by the way, how does this work? Why eradicating ethnic groups' identity by wiping off, by covering their graveyards, turning into parks and car parks and playgrounds. Like, why would that eradicate an identity? Don't you like? I mean, Islam is really good at making identities based on being the victim. I mean, that has worked in their favor many times. Wouldn't this create like for at least the Muslims in China? Wouldn't that give them a Genesis narrative of the very popular victim Genesis narrative? Like, what wouldn't that? How do they think this is going to eradicate their identity? It just gives them a different identity based on victimhood. Wouldn't it do that? Like, I don't.
Well, what
Yeah, yeah.
what I think they're doing here is, with people, the Muslims who are living there, they're going through brainwashing camps, where they're coming out, fully Chinese, indoctrinated, no religion, bots leaving their camp. So if they get rid of all of their old, for example, they talked about a prominent poet from the Uighur area. And he's huge to the Muslims in this area, and they wiped off where he was buried. They don't know where his remains are. So it's as if he didn't exist. If they're not allowed to read the texts, if they're not allowed to remember, even without being scared of having to go back to these camps, they aren't allowed to even speak of their past. So if there's no memory of their past, there's no text of their past, there's nothing to remind them but Happiness Park, which was built over this poet's memorial.
Wow.
Then that's how they are eradicating them.
I don't know if this is gonna. My bets on this is gonna backfire, and I mean, they might be counting at a backfire because if there is a backfire and the backfire comes in a form of an attack or a terrorist attack, then China is like, yeah, see, this is why we're doing what we're doing. But I don't know if I mean, China is the amount of control they have in their countries is extremely is surprise. Like, I don't know if you guys saw when with regards to getting all these Chinese governments to stop working with Western companies that have shown any support for the Hong Kong protests, right? The number of the Chinese companies, the way they all folded and the way they all immediately cut ties based on the Chinese government's request or demand, more accurately, how fast all these private companies, so-called private companies in China, cut ties so fast. It's just so, unfortunately, so impressive how much control China has over its economy, like how fast they get to do that. So, if anybody could do anything like this, it would be China. But I don't know. Maybe in the short term it looks impressive, but I bet you this is gonna. I bet this is gonna backfire in a more cultural way, more than a terrorist way. Like this is, I mean, think about. I don't understand. I don't think China might be, Chinese government might be very overconfident over their ability because they can see how much control they have. They might be overconfident, but overall they're losing the narrative. Like, for example, if you, so they must not understand how this could backfire given what we see they do when it comes to controlling the narratives in other areas, right? So what I'm saying is that I don't think China knows how to get rid of identities or destroy narratives based on their performance on trying to destroy the pro Hong Kong narrative, right? They must not understand how this works because when somebody tweets again supports Hong Kong protesters, right, and then you go and say, okay, let's cut ties with this company, and this company tries like, oh, sorry China, like, oh, okay, like let's fire this guy, oh, this guy doesn't represent us. That story becomes way worse to China than the original tweet, right? So given that this is such an obvious thing for somebody like me that doesn't have PR experience, doesn't have media training, didn't go to school to understand, like I'm pretty sure they have people that they pay a ton of money as consultants and all that stuff, and they couldn't figure this out. That obviously you making U.S. or Western companies given to your demands is going to be so much more anti-Chinese. It's going to look worse to the world. You have promoted anti-Chinese narratives way more than the Hong Kong protesters by doing that, right? So given that they don't understand that, I question their ability to understand how, like a lot of people are like, oh, good job, China, you're anti-Islam, this is what is needed. Yeah, I don't think they understand how this works. I don't think they understand how to fight Islam. And I keep telling people, and I keep saying, hey, China, hire me, I'll show you how to defeat Islam. The best way to defeat Islam is to be nice to Muslims, be friends to Muslims. The best way to promote Islam is to be, if you're not enough decent human being to just be nice to people just for the sake of being nice to people, at least be nice to Muslims, because that's the best way of defeating Islam. At least if that's what your intention is, right? Because this is what a lot of Christian missionaries understand, by the way, and they're right about that. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I mean, I listen to a lot of opinions of people that I disagree with. I listen to far right, far left Christian Islamic content, and I used to listen to a podcast by these Christian missionaries, and they used to say, like, one of them that was very effective. They said, like, listen, the first 1 year that you meet somebody, you don't even mention the Bible or Jesus to them. You just show them how good of a person you are, and you just help them. You show up at their home, you help them move their stuff. If there's something is broken, you go fix them. You don't mention Jesus, you don't mention the Bible. They will ask you at some point, right? And like, wow, these people really understand how this works, right? And if you go and destroy mosques, if you go and tell Muslims that you need to eat pork, and if you put them in concentration camps, that will never destroy Islam. You're promoting Islam. This is what makes Islam stronger, okay? If you want to defeat Islam, you go as an atheist or as a non-Muslim, as an anti-Islam activist, as somebody that wants Islam to end, and then you show Muslims that you are a fellow human beings that could be friends with them, and they see that, oh, it's possible to be so anti-Islam and still be a decent human being. That's the best seed of doubt that you could introduce to any Muslim. Right? That's the most effective way that you could introduce doubt in people. Even if they don't doubt Islam, at least they will learn how to get along with people that disagree with their ideas. And you say, like, oh yeah, sure, Armin, that never works. You're being an ideologue. Yeah, sure, rainbows and butterflies. Let's hold hand and sing kumbaya. Well, I can tell you, it has worked. We have an atheist republic. We have seen what works the most. We have 15 years of experience. We have the largest atheist community online around the world, and we're responsible for thousands of people abandoning their religion, including Islam. And we know what works best. We've seen what works best. So, China, if you want to hire me, I'm available for hire, and I will destroy Islam in China for you, and I will do it in a way that doesn't violate anyone's human rights. Anyways, you guys, when I add anything, I'm pretty sure the top comments is just going to mention the typo. Yeah. It says, what's a
The cark park.
cark park? Yeah, this is the independent article. By the way, guys, we don't have the budget of the independent, and we don't make mistakes like this. This is a mistype, and it says I read this. I was like, what's the crack park? That's what I read originally. Quick, but yeah. So no comments. Most of the comments are just about the typo. So I'm not going to read the comments. But Ali, Shubham, any comments in this?
No, I'm good.
Shubham?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Sorry, I know I said we need to move on faster, but I talked for too long. Let's bring up the... Wait 1 second, please. It's loading. All right. Next news.
Next news is out of Germany. Germany shooting. Gunman kills 2 after attacking synagogue. A man dressed up in camo goes up to a popular synagogue where they were holding a very large, not a rally, but they were observing a Jewish holiday. So there were obviously a lot more people present than usual. And he was anticipating this. He was dressed up in camo. Witnesses on the street who saw him thought that he was a part of the military. Didn't really think much of it. He had guns with him, dressed up like somebody in the military. However, it started getting weird when he was trying to get into the synagogue but couldn't. It was locked. And he became increasingly frustrated. And he just pulls out a gun and shoots a lady, right?
Wow.
And then starts getting more upset. People start coming to see what the gunshot was. He shoots another guy. He throws what people thought was a grenade into a building. When it didn't go off, he just started firing at everybody in there. 2 people were taken to the hospital to get treated for gunshot wounds. Several others were injured, and 2 people were unfortunately shot dead. The motives behind this aren't exactly clear, but they do believe that this was politically motivated, religiously motivated.
Religious or race? I think it would be mostly racist than religious. When it comes to Jewish people, it's mostly racist. It's not because like people's disagreement with Jewish theology. So I think it's mostly racism. But by the way, guys, just a warning: don't judge based on news like this that anti-Semitic attacks are rising in Europe. Anti-Semitic attacks are rising in Europe, but you should look at statistics to decide that. Don't judge it based on saying articles like this, right? Don't go when you're going through your newsfeed and you see like, oh, more of this showing up on your newsfeed, like, oh, another attack. That's not a good way of realizing that, oh, these attacks are on the rise. It happens to be true that the attacks on Jewish people are on the rise, but anecdotal stories like this is not a good way of deciding that. Okay. So just
Gage is asking, did they catch the man? So the man was actually doing this live on social media. So they know he wasn't trying to hide who he was at all. He wasn't. They absolutely caught him. They know who he was. Sorry.
Where is this? And they have some of the strictest gun laws in Europe. Oh my God! Somebody's making this about gun stuff. Somebody's pointing out that Germany has some of the strictest laws. Okay, here's another thing I want to warn you about. Derek is saying that, and they have some of the strictest gun laws in Europe, right? So he's pointing out that gun laws don't work because obviously this guy got a gun, and you have strict gun laws in Europe. So what's the point of gun laws? Again, you can't judge based on whatever side of the argument with regards to gun laws you are. You can't judge by anecdotal evidence whether gun laws are working or not. So if you just look at this story and be like, oh, you have strict gun laws in Europe and this guy shot 2 people, so forget gun laws, right? No, you look at data. Just because you can find examples where gun laws didn't stop a shooting, that doesn't mean gun laws don't work. If you look at statistics, maybe attacks have dropped significantly, even though not to 0, Okay, you don't judge based on stories that you see online. You actually have to look at the numbers. Again, even if you think gun laws don't work, don't don't make your arguments based on one or two stories that you see, or even many stories that you see. Because even if you see many stories, the way that you collected stories is not randomized, it's not unbiased. We cannot control our bias. Most of people that collect statistics, if they're good sources, they adjust for all of that, right? So again, do you guys want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to say this, here's the problem with this news, that I think the right wing can probably come out and blame video games again, because the site in which he streamed the video, it was a gaming site, Twitch.
Twitch. It was on
Uh,
Twitch.
yeah, it was Twitch.
Mm.
It's mainly used by gamers, so there's a chance that the right wing will come out and say it's video games again.
What do you mean?
I mean, they
Oh,
try to
the
connect
right wing
any
people
shootings to video
to
games.
video games. Okay, yeah, they
Yes.
always do that. I mean, we have data that shows that that's wrong, right? So,
Right.
Yep.
anyways, okay, let's go. Come on, it's loading. Okay, next news.
Next news is out of Iran. Nuclear weapons are forbidden in Islam, says Iran's Khamenei. Supreme Leader
Khamenei.
Ayatollah Ali
Khamenei.
Khamenei
Yes.
said Wednesday that Iran could have taken a step to develop nuclear weapons, but said that their use is actually haram, which is so
Haram.
it's forbidden. Haram,
Yes.
thank you, Armin,
No.
or forbidden in Islam. He said, end quote, although we could have taken steps on this path based on Islamic ruling, we firmly and bravely said we won't take this path. Both building and stockpiling is wrong, and using it is haram. He told a group of academics in a video posted on his office's Twitter account, and then he continued by saying, if we had a nuclear weapon, it would have been obvious that it would have been impossible for us to use anywhere. Under Islamic principles, it's definitely haram.
Yeah, and just to be clear to you guys, a lot of people might say, "Oh, taqiyya." He can't. First of all, if you say taqiyya when you hear something like this, and he's lying, obviously, if they use it, if they have it, they will use it. Then you don't understand how anything in Shia Islam works. By the way, this is obviously. Do I need to go to the basics and explain to the people who this guy is and why what he says is important, or are we beyond that right now? Okay, so Khamenei is obviously the main supreme religious leader in Iran. What he says is basically treated without officially anybody admitting that, it's kind of treated somewhat close to the word of God, right? And again, that might be a slight exaggeration, but not a lot. What he says is accepted as Islam, okay, and by not Shias, because a lot of Shias actually hate him, but the Shias that do follow the Vilayat Faqih ideology version of Shia Islam, which is most religious people in Iran, they consider what this guy says as just sacred, without admitting it infallible. And this guy, the amount of control and the amount of what he says goes. Like basically, I can tell you, the president position in Iran is just a puppet position with no real power, because this guy is the real power, and you cannot say or go or do anything against whatever he says. And if you can't even disagree with him, you can't even disagree with him. If you openly disagree with him, that's like, yeah, you're probably going to get executed, right? Just saying like, oh, he's wrong, it's a crime. Maybe not officially on the books as a crime, but good luck, try that. Like, go like, hey, I love this guy, I love Khamenei, but I think he was wrong about this. Yeah, okay, good luck. You're gonna get arrested and executed. But just so you cannot just say that. Again, a lot of people might think I'm naive by saying this, but you cannot just, if he says something like this, if he makes a religious ruling that he thinks that using nuclear weapons is haram, Again, a lot of people from Iran are going to be upset with me saying this, but as long as this guy is alive, or as long as this regime is in place, they cannot go back on this. Like, something major has to happen in Iran for somebody to come and say, oh, Khamenei was wrong, and it's not forbidden, and we are allowed to use nuclear weapons, right? If this guy says it's haram, and we cannot ever use nuclear weapons. And by the way, this is not new. He had said this a while back as well, but he's saying it again now, and that's why it's on the news. But if he says it's haram and it's not, you cannot use it, then nobody will dare even suggest otherwise in Iran, and nobody will be able to use it in Iran, even if they did have it. Okay, and just so you guys understand, you have to I'm not defending the Islamic Republic of Iran. Islamic Republic of Iran is a theocracy. It needs to end. It needs to be toppled, maybe from within. And I don't know if I don't think it would, but it's responsible for many human rights violations, and it's an oppressive, barbaric, backwards regime. But it's also a very smart and strategic regime, and people dismiss these religious people as maniacs, and they're not. They're extremely strategic. They know what they're doing, and Iran would never use a nuclear weapon, even if they had it, because these people are not suicidal, obviously, right? You have to try, if you want to understand your enemy, you have to steelman them. You have to try to think logically what they would do for their own survival, rather than thinking, oh, these are just crazy Muslims and they would bomb us, and oh, this is like, if they had a nuclear weapon, they would be like this and that. No, you have to put yourself in their position and be like, what would I do if I was them and I was trying to survive, right? You look around the world, why would they want to have nuclear? First of all, they claim, my theory is, which could be completely wrong, is that Iran knows that if it had nuclear weapons, it would not be ideal on a geopolitical, in its position on a global scale. But also, if it doesn't have nuclear weapons, it's vulnerable, right? It would be the most ideal situation for Iran would be to be able to be in a position where it doesn't have nuclear weapons, but it has all the elements and all the equipments that it could go from not having a nuclear weapon to having a nuclear weapon within a very short amount of time, right? So you could be like, look, we don't have nuclear weapons, so get off our backs, but also we have the capability of making nuclear weapons, so mind your own business, right? But if you were in the position, you looked at Libya, right? And you looked at Iraq, okay? And if you look at these countries, these are countries that give in to the United States. And they're like, Saddam said, hey, bring these people, I don't have weapons. And Libya, like, here's my weapons, United States, please be friends with me. And they did that, and what happened? They got invaded after they gave in to United States demands, right? And we're like, okay, well, why would we disarm, or why would we give in to United States demand, given the history of countries like Libya? And you think like, oh, they tell us like, if you just give away your weapons and if you just do this and that, then you're gonna have better relationships with the West and the world, and the economy is gonna open up to you. Like, yeah, sure. Look at Saddam and look at Libya, right? Look at Gaddafi. That didn't happen to them. They gave in and then they got attacked. But if you look at North Korea, they're like, hey, look at North Korea. They have nuclear weapons, and United States is trying to like, hey, let's negotiate. Hey, come, please talk to us. Like, look, they're respecting North Korea because they have nuclear weapons, and they attacked Libya and Iraq right after they gave up their weapons, and after they accepted people to come in and look for weapons. So based on their history and look at the Kurds now, right? Anyways, so based on the history of the United States, the way it treats its allies and the way it treats the people that say like, okay, fine, let's see if we could work this out, and given that people that actually defy United States and try to stand strong, why would we do that? Why would we, like, obviously United States has proven that they shouldn't be worked with. So they strategically, it makes sense for them to do what they're doing. Again, I don't think Iran, saying all that, I do think Iran wants to have nuclear energy, I don't think they want to have nuclear weapons. But again, Khamenei didn't say it's forbidden in Islam to have nuclear energy, right? It's just nuclear weapons, right? Again, and if they have nuclear energy, the whole world will know that it's still scary enough for us to attack. And again, so I already made it clear. But if you disagree, this is all could be wrong. This is based on my understanding and what I've seen. But if you disagree, let me know. And if you say taqiyya, by the way, then you don't understand how taqiyya works and what the purpose of it is. I'm not going to get into that because that will make this a lot longer. Sorry if I went, and this is stuff that I talk about more. That's why this segment went a little bit longer. But did you guys want to ask any questions or add anything?
No, good.
Yep, good. I'm good.
Okay, let me close this. All right, the next one. All right.
Next news is out of Canada. An anti-abortion clinic gives away mini-fetuses in a parade, prompting a rule change. And at the Rosedale Harvest Festival in British Columbia over the weekend, one of the groups sponsored a float called the Pregnancy Care Center, which is a group that is notorious for giving misleading information to women who are pregnant and looking for alternative choices because they don't want to be pregnant anymore. So what they did, all the floats traditionally hand out candy. These people handed out candy with a tiny little toy fetus. Along with that, with two different images of a human fetus and one, giving their office hours. So now, because this kind of shocked the parade organizers and threw everybody off kilter there, they have now prompted a rule change. The only thing that can be given out at floats in the future will be candy.
Well, okay, but there's a loophole there. You know what the loophole is?
What's that?
Candy-shaped fetuses. No,
fetus-shaped
candies. Not candy-shaped fetuses. Ew. No, fetus-shaped candies. But what like? Why were people shocked? These are not real fetuses. They're just toys.
So in the article, it says that this could have prompted, or had an unintended effect for women who had just suffered miscarriages.
Come on. This is
yeah.
Don't add rules unnecessarily. Oh, people are shocked. Add a new rule. This is government.
Here's the deal: is the toy itself looks like something, I don't know, some creepy thing my kid might play with. It's just a piece of plastic. It's no big deal. Even the image of the little fetus that they get. Armin, can you show that?
Yeah, it's in the cover, right? The image.
Okay, is it on the cover?
Yeah.
I don't have that, but
you're talking about
it's harmless.
Yeah, it's harmless. Yeah, I mean, see, okay. First of all, yeah, this is stupid. These people are stupid. Abortion should be allowed. Fetuses are not self-aware. They don't matter. And if people say I don't care about the arguments like it's so hard on the mom. That's why you don't understand that. Women make this a very hard decision for them, and they put a lot of thought into it before they do this. No, it doesn't matter. Even if they don't put thought into it, if you're like, yeah, no, I don't. It's not hard on me. I have abortions left and right whenever I want. It doesn't matter. It's a fetus. It's not self-aware. Just because it has human cells in it, doesn't make it doesn't deserve individual rights, right? It doesn't have. It's not self-aware. Kill it as many times as you want. So that's that. But when it comes, and also if people say like, oh, my body, my choice, that's not a good argument either, okay? Because if it was self-aware, then it's not just your body, it would be someone else's body as well, right? So if it was self-aware, it would be someone else's body as well. It's not just your body. The reason why they don't matter, the fetuses don't matter, is because it's not a self-aware entity, so get rid of it if you don't like it. But even though these anti-abortion clinic people are, absolutely wrong, you're coming up with a rule like this is. I hate them in the governments. This is what it was a city government, like was a city probably, right? Coming up with rules like, oh, you can only hand that candy. Like, really, you're gonna come up with a rule for every little thing because people were shocked? I don't understand. All right, so yeah, I'm actually hoping this clinic comes because I'm also against too much government intervention. I hope they take advantage of the loophole, and next time they come out and they're like, oh, we can only handle candy. Okay, here are candies shaped in fetuses. Now come up with a new rule, and then they find another loophole for that. Let me read the top comment. William is saying, have is it? What? Every single civilized country I've been to, apart from America, gotten past the trivial domestic issue of abortion. It truly is the most culturally terrifying place on earth. Well, William, this is in Canada. It's very interesting. I think William assumed that this is in the U.S., and it's very interesting because I think William is he in the U.S.? This is a very U.S.-centric view because this news is in Canada, and I think a lot of people just assume that the news is happening in the U.S. Well, I went out of focus in my camera. Okay, and I think that people think that just because Canada, even though abortion is legal and there's nothing stopping it, you still have anti-abortion activists. They think that Canada is a godless heathen country that allows all this stuff. These Christians over there. All right, I'm just gonna. Should I read the second comment? Martin saying, "Always wonder why the same people allow kids to starve." No, that's okay. So Martin is saying, "Oh, I always wonder why the same people allow kids to starve around the world." Really? Do you have data for that? Do you have data that shows that the people that are anti-abortion are all of them, or most of them? Show me that most of them allow kids to starve around the world. What if some of them come and like, oh, I'm anti-abortion and I'm also donating to charity to kids around the world to make sure they don't starve? Does that make their argument more legit? Because guess what? I actually met a lot of them that are extremely anti-abortion, and they also care about children that are alive, that are starving. Okay, that's a straw man. That's just not true. Abortion, just actually address why they're wrong. Okay, abortion is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, and here are the reasons. Don't go like, oh, you people, some of them pretend to care about human beings, and they're just trying to be anti people that they disagree with, and this is just a game for them. But a lot of them are not like that. A lot of them actually think this is a human rights violation, and they care about fetuses and also born kids. Okay. So don't misrepresent what an entire group of people have to say. Do you guys want to add anything?
No.
No.
All right. Let's go to the next news.
Next news is out of Syria. ISIS has a plan to bust out 70,000 supporters from Kurdish jails now that the U.S. has abandoned the area to the Turkish military. So, yeah, everyone knows what's been going on lately between Turkish, U.S., the Kurdish. Turkey is invading northeastern Syria. And the problem is that we've had, obviously, tens of thousands of ISIS members being held in prisons there, in camps, which there were a lot of issues with that as well. I'm not sure if we need to get into it during this or not. But so the U.S. Wednesday night moved a lot of high-profile people out of those jails into jail or undisclosed locations outside of Syria. But ISIS is watching closely because they're going to want to know when they can come in and get their people out. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and also, but Turkey is also. I know Turkey cannot be trusted, obviously, but they're also promising that they're not going to let any of these ISIS members to get away, right? By the way, how do we know that ISIS has planned this? Did ISIS officially announce this?
Well, this is actually a part of the news. Is a lot of the people, a lot of ISIS fighters there, are actually treating the prisons like their home, and they're actually running escapes, and they're attacking the guards, and they're plotting right there in their jail cells. So how they're getting information in and out of these prisons, I don't know. But clearly
it's going to be very hard to keep. And here's the thing, I know a lot of people might not want to hear this because most of the attitudes is pro-Kurdish people, but let's be pretty clear here. Again, I'm not taking a position against or for the Kurds because the Kurds are many people and you can't take an entire position against an entire group of people. But there is some motivations among the Kurds to let these ISIS people loose as punishment for the betrayal, right? There is some motivation there as well for the Kurds to let ISIS members loose to show that Turkey was not, because before Turkey manages to get a hold of these ISIS people, obviously the Kurds have control over them right now, and before the Turkey managed to step in and make sure that they don't get free, the Kurds will be in a position to let some of them go, right? So they might be motivated in doing that.
Well, yeah, here's the deal is I will take a stand and say I do stand with the Kurds. They are US allies. They have fought beside us in war before. And I think that what's happening, what we did, is outrageous. And so that's just the position that I absolutely will take on that. I understand that people are people. There are going to be some good people and some bad people in every group, same as America. Okay, but that's not how you treat your allies. So
yeah, no, I mean, I agree that that was a bad policy decision, but that doesn't mean that Kurds have terrorist groups in them. The Kurds.
absolutely, so does
Right.
America. We have terrorist groups here. I mean,
Yeah,
everyone has terrorist
of course.
groups, but
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, we cannot. I mean, I think that again, when you're talking about the Kurds, which group are you talking about? Are we talking about the PKK, the YPG? Are we talking about the Kurds in northern Syria, or there are Kurds that are not affiliated with any groups? There are communists over there. Are many communist Kurds over there. There are Kurds in Iraq. There are many groups, different groups of Kurds in Iraq. There are many different Kurds in Iran. Many different groups that they don't even agree with each other. There are Kurds attacking other Kurds because of the disagreements with each other. So I don't agree with the position like, oh, I support the Kurds. Well, the Kurds don't support the Kurds. There are Kurds that are attacking other Kurds as well, right? So I don't
right,
like.
but we're clearly talking about these fighters.
Right. Okay. So even these fighters, like the northern, you're talking about northern Syria Kurds, right? So when you refer to them, the Kurds, some Kurds in northern Syria might take issue with that. They're like, you're talking about the YPG, but then we're exchanging YPG and northern Syrian Kurds interchangeably, and some northern Syrian Kurds may be like, well, I'm not associated with YPG. A lot of them are, a lot of them support them, but a lot of them don't. So I'm just saying, like, we can't be like, we support the Kurds. Maybe you support the YPG. Is that what you're saying? Like, or something like that?
Sure, and if anyone, if any Kurd that associates as a Kurd and doesn't understand who America's talking about when we say we support the Kurds, they can type mad about it, I guess.
Okay.
It's obvious who it is we're talking about.
Right.
And I do see your point. I do. It's just I don't want to sit here and take I don't know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm just pointing out some things that we might be worried about. But by the way, Turkey will take full advantage of that if the Kurds. By the way, here's going to be the hypocrisy of the Turks. If there are a few Kurds that do decide to, as revenge, let some ISIS members out as a way to show, like, look, Turkey has messed up. Look what Turkey has done. Turkey came and invading here, and now ISIS is loose because of Turkey. Turkey will jump on that and be like, "Look, this is what the Kurds are doing. They're letting ISIS go, and this is why the Kurds are bad, right?" And they won't say Kurds; they will say the YPG. But it would be hypocritical of them because the Turks have done the same thing, right? With terrorist groups, they have let terrorist group loose as a strategic method, and recently, Erdogan himself openly announced that he's going to let refugees flood Europe as a revenge for the positions that Europe is taking against this attack. If they don't mind their own business, and this has been the most. He said that openly. I was like, oh, this was supposed to be the secret part, and now you're publicly announcing it. So they're not ashamed to publicly make a strategical move like that themselves, but they will go out and be hypocritical even if a small fractions of the Kurds decided should do something like that, like letting ISIS members out. They will make that as if all the YPG has done that, and they will call it out even though they do the same thing.
Yeah.
So let me just see. the top comments saying, Jeremy is saying, so when a president keeps his campaign promises, it's bad. First of all, it's very interesting because this article didn't say anything about the president's campaign promises or whether the Trump decision was. See, this is how sensitive Trump. This is how snowflakey and how fast Trump supporters get triggered, right? Even there's no mention of Trump in the article. Even if it doesn't mention anything whether a Trump decision was good or bad, even if it's just reporting facts, if it's just about the news that some ISIS people have, like, are planning on getting out if this happens, you just report facts and they see it as an attack, right? Honestly, I think that the Trump supporters are getting more triggered than most Muslims that come on and attack us on this show. That's how fast. Some, again, I'm not generalizing. I'm saying some Trump supporters are extremely sensitive. They see an attack on their God Emperor Trump in almost every headline. This has turned into a cult. Did you guys want to add anything?
Nope. I'm good.
Yeah, well, about, I mean, you were asking about how they got the information. It's from a former ISIS fighter who is now fighting for a non-jihadist rebel group there. He told the insider about this information, and also the information they're sharing the information in and out of the prison through Telegram and WhatsApp.
Oh, and you know why it's Telegram and WhatsApp? Not like other apps?
And
Because these
well, because they're very less security, I guess.
No, because they're encrypted.
Oh, yeah.
Telegram and WhatsApp are encrypted, so you can't trace the
That's true.
source. That's why they use those. That's why they're not using Facebook Messenger. But that's very interesting. Thank you so much for adding that, Shubham. That's very good.
Yep.
All right, let's go. Well done. Okay, next news.
Next news out of the USA, right-wing websites are distorting scientific data to attack trans people. All right, so there have been a lot of studies going on about the drugs that are used they're puberty blockers, right? And these have been given to trans children, drugs like Lupron, which now right-wing websites are trying to say Lupron and drugs like it, which block any preteen from going into puberty, it's linked to thousands of adult deaths. And while the numbers are accurate to a degree, the way they're being used is a complete distortion. Okay, when the FDA in their FEARS system, the Adverse Effect Reporting System, started reporting on adult deaths in this, conservative groups and people like Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, and Matt Walsh took that information and didn't actually research what was going on with it. So what they did was they took information that had duplicate reports, inaccuracy, lack of medical verification, and things of that nature, and they drew conclusions which were out of context based on what the FAERS database was actually trying to represent. So they're basically saying that if you give your children these puberty blockers, then you're purposely trying to kill your kid. Trans children, need to go through puberty like everybody else, blah, blah, blah. And this is scientifically proven as to why, when they're misrepresenting what's actually scientifically
What is
proven.
the context? You're saying it's accurate that it actually caused thousands of deaths?
Well, sure, any drug can, right?
Thousands?
And I am not a doctor, so I'm not going to sit here and
Okay, here's the thing. The drug, I mean, they're using Lupron. It's not just used as puberty blockers. It's also used to fight many deadly diseases. So they're also adding in all the extras except for puberty blockers, all the extras they're treating patients. There are bound to be patients who die even after the drug. So they're also adding it.
Viagra. Viagra has different purposes, right? You can be
Yeah.
prescribed Viagra for heart issues, or that you can't just say
I see.
trying to get sexual means you're going to die. That's not.
So
A lot of people who take Viagra have heart issues.
Okay, so let me put this in perspective for people that don't get it. First of all, should we explain what puberty blockers are to people, or people don't? Like, okay, so when people are, a lot of people that have transitions, they keep saying that they wish they had puberty blockers because it's much easier to transition if you don't go through puberty and then you realize that you're trans, and then you can switch from one gender to another if you don't go through puberty. So a lot of times when kids, there's a chance that they might be trans. What they do is that they inject puberty blockers, right? Is that right? And then they don't go through puberty, so then they have a longer time to decide whether they're trans or not, right? So a lot of right-wing people are saying this is harmful. A lot of left-wing people are saying this is not harmful. And if you're getting your sources, if you are trying to understand if they're harmful or not based on left-wing or right-wing sources, then you're not doing your job right. Like, obviously, you don't go through right-wing and left-wing media to realize whether this is science or not. You actually have to go to scientific sources directly. So don't go look at right-wing media to see if this is true or not. But the thing is now, what you guys are saying is that obviously any drug that is used on a mass scale, even if it's if a very, very small percentage of people get harmful effects from it, a small percentage of a very, very large number is going to become a big number. And because this drug is used in many other things other than just doing puberty blocking, the large number that you're dealing with at the beginning is going to be a massive, massive number, which a small percentage of it is going to be a big number. Even though they're, like, for example, they're not looking at just the number of people that died when this drug was used as a puberty blocker, and looking at how, they're looking at the overall usage of this drug. And then the small percentage of that overall usage that led to death is going to obviously be a big number, because you're dealing with a very small percentage of a much, much bigger number, right? Is that good? Is that right?
Okay, I mean, here's one thing. They're not just taking in the cases where the drugs caused death. They're also taking in cases where the people used drugs and their death had no relation, almost no relation to the drug, but they died after taking the drug.
Wow. Okay. So it's very
So
okay.
that's even larger number.
But here's a more general question: do we know, because I haven't looked into the research at all, but do we know if puberty blockers do have any adverse effect on children or not?
No, I don't think there's any scientific data about puberty blockers having any adverse effects. They just block the puberty for a certain time, and after you after you quit puberty blockers, you resume your puberty just as it should be.
But there's no adverse effect, and
No,
I don't think we can sit here and say there's no adverse effects.
no.
There's no
I think
proven.
we should say we don't know.
There's the
No.
proof.
Because obviously, if someone can take this pill and die from it, regardless of why they're taking it or how they actually died, any medication we take can absolutely have an adverse effect. So there might be. I don't know. I wouldn't say that there is no absolute, effects.
I would say there's no scientific data yet.
Right. So
for any
there's no
adverse.
proven adverse effect.
Yeah.
Right.
But whatever your position is in this is, like, whatever. First of all, if you have a position, you better have to actually check the actual research, and all the research rather than the research that's given to you, and make sure you actually check if it's a reputable, good research. But whatever you think about the position, you have to agree that this method of this right-wing article is not the best way. Like, even if you think puberty blockers are a bad idea, please at least be intellectually honest enough to admit that this method of these right-wing websites is not the best way to make your case, right? Let me see what the top comments are. The top comments is William is saying, aren't we supposed to be critical thinkers? Whenever something starts like that, I was like, well, if you're probably not one of them, right? Because who's we? If by we you mean atheists, then you had assumed that atheists are critical thinkers. That means you are not one of the critical thinkers yourself. And you yourself are proving that no, not all atheists are not critical thinkers, because you are here, okay? So, and you're saying that aren't we supposed to be? Who said that we're supposed to be critical thinker? Yeah, I want to be a critical thinker. You guys want to be a critical thinker. But anybody that suggests atheists in general are critical thinkers is generalizing, is misrepresenting information, and they themselves are proof that atheists are not all critical thinkers. So William continues. But anyway, I don't know if let me continue reading, because he might contradict everything I just said. But now I just had to say that. William is saying 16 to 21, depending on the research, should be age of consent to fundamentally life-altering decisions, with the same suicide rate pre and post-op Are we really helping them to begin with? Okay, this is very interesting, William, because you're actually making a case for using what is it? What is it called? Okay, puberty blockers, right? Because you're saying you should be an adult to be able to decide, right? So that's the whole point of puberty blockers, isn't it? Because
Yeah, it's the entire point.
the whole point of puberty blockers is that you went through puberty as a child, and you now as an adult you didn't get to decide to transition properly. The whole point of puberty blockers is to pause puberty, so that when you're an adult now you can make a decision as an adult if you want to transit or not, right? That's the whole point of puberty blockers, is that you can make the decision as an adult, isn't that right? So because as a child you couldn't tell your parents, like, hey, please do this. Like, no, you're a kid, we shouldn't listen to your demands to transition or not transition or whatever it is. Well, actually not transition, but we cannot, as a child you don't get to demand that you go through transition, or we do not know we want you to be able to decide. So that's the whole point of puberty blockers. Again, I'm not saying puberty blockers are a good thing or not, because I don't know the science behind it. I'm just saying the point is to be able to have consent as an adult. Also, this whole thing about suicide things, the suicide pre and post, I don't know if that's data. Is that scientific, that the suicide rates are higher post-operation than pre-operation? Do we know that?
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Okay, if somebody thinks is that true, because if you only talk about suicide rates, people could be like, well, suicide rates are high in trans people because obviously you're born in the wrong body. That's depressing. Obviously, these people are going to have high suicide rates, and also because of social pressure on trans people and the way they're treated in society. So that's going to increase suicide rates. But if you actually if there's actually data to show post-op suicide rates are higher than pre-op suicide rates, I don't know what the explanation for that would be, but I don't know if that's true. Don't trust William though, because William doesn't seem to be a critical thinker. But if that is true, please let us know, and let us know what you think the reason is. Anyways, do you guys want to add anything?
Yeah, like even if we did, okay, so say we did do research on that, on pre-op and post-op suicide rates. The problem we're going to run into there is, was it a full completion of post-op? Was it a partial transition? We would have to look into that. 1, 2, there have been a lot of studies that have proven things like if somebody has a supportive family or something of that nature, there's a huge percentage chance that they're not going to kill themselves. So there's so many different factors to take into account there that I just don't know. I would really be interested in a study, but it would really have to be done
properly.
Very.
Yeah, make sure you just, and also everybody's going to come into looking at the research with their own bias. So people that are one side, they're going to look, they're going to try to find the research that confirms their position. All sides do this. Just be careful with that, because you're going to probably, if you're going to go look for data that confirms your position, you're going to probably find it, right? Try to see if you didn't have a position, how would you go actually look for data? Try to do that. It's very difficult. You might think you're not biased, but we're all biased. All right, let's see what the next news is. All right, next news.
Next news is out of Australia. Australian Muslims call for more protection in religious discrimination bill. So Australia's Islamic body has warned of increased discrimination towards Muslims in Australia, and they're trying to get a religious discrimination bill passed. They're saying that the drafts of the laws that are in this bill do not go far enough with an increasingly intolerant society. And they're saying, in quote, there is now a growing body of evidence to support this increased intolerance towards Muslims and their beliefs and practices. Australian society has become more intolerant of Muslims and religious minorities specifically. That intolerance, we submit, has led to an increased level of discrimination. So they're saying that in Australia right now, like, discrimination is just on a complete rise, and they want to do more to safeguard themselves.
Okay, but I mean, two things. Is is the anti-discrimination law in Australia too, mild? Is that true? We don't know. Is it? We don't know. But are they?
Uh, so, well, there have been doing studies on this. I know that another godless atheist actually sent us um, an article discussing one of the research studies showing that it is on the rise, and that it is bad throughout Australia. However, a lot of the research, when you actually look at the research, not just read the articles about it, they're taking a very tiny, tiny percentage. There's a lot of flaws in the research that's done. And so I don't know.
No,
I really
I'm not questioning on
could
the.
be.
I'm not questioning the part. I mean, I should be, but I'm not yet. I'm not right now questioning the part that they're saying it's on the rise. The part that I'm questioning is that, first of all, um, is more laws the solution? Maybe the laws are already pretty good. Maybe it's just the other things that need to be added to solving the problem like this, right? And also, like, maybe it's already strict enough. Like, hey, discrimination against a group of people is illegal. What else? What else do you? What else could you add to that, right? And here are the punishments, right? Maybe it's
Right.
already where it needs to be. Um, and maybe is it and okay, maybe they have good laws, maybe it's not being enforced. Is it being enforced, right? So we can't just be taking a position on whether they're right or not based on just hearing this, right? Maybe they're wrong, maybe no, they have good anti-discrimination laws and it's being enforced, but discrimination against Muslims is still on the rise. So maybe they're completely wrong about this. But it also sounds as if, I'm not sure if this is true, if there is, as if they want specific laws addressing Muslims. Is that what they're requesting? Because if that's what they're requesting, then hell no, right? Because that's like that. Now you're moving into religious privilege kind of demand. Like, oh, you just need an overall anti-discrimination law for everybody, right? Uh, you don't need to, like, hey, here's one for Muslims, right? You should. I don't think that should be. Is that what they're asking for?
Well, and we should definitely speak with another godless atheist in our chat right now, because they know more about this area than we do.
Right.
But he's what he said in our chat so far is that they have good laws already, anti-discrimination laws already, but it's the right that want exemptions from those laws. So
Oh, wait, the right ones. The right one's exemption from those laws? What do you mean? I don't understand what that means.
yeah.
Okay, can you please explain that? But anyways, because we don't. I mean, we see what another godless atheist has to say. I'm just saying, when you're looking at an article like this, because we are anti-Islam activists, it might be tempting to take a very easy position and be like, oh, they're demanding privilege and stuff like that. No, I mean, if they are actually being discriminated against, which I'm pretty sure they are, and if the laws are not good enough, or the laws are good and they're not being enforced, that's a reasonable thing for Muslims in Australia to try to bring attention to. As long as
Okay,
yeah,
Armin,
yeah.
he's saying that the right want to discriminate based on religious belief. So it's the same thing that's happening by the sounds of it, like here in America.
Right.
How, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's not reasonable, right? Discriminate. I mean, you could call by discriminate if you mean call it out as nonsense, by attacking Islam as an ideology, ridiculing it, making fun of it, pointing out its flaws. If that's what they mean by discrimination, which a lot of Muslims do mean that by discrimination, then absolutely not. There shouldn't be any laws against that. And I think a lot of Muslims point to that as discrimination. That's not discrimination, okay? That is not discrimination. Grow up. Grow up. You being offended is not people discriminating against you, okay? A lot of Muslims do mean that when they say, oh, discrimination is rising. But I also know other forms of real discrimination is also rising. And when they actually bring attention to that, like, for example, if they're being mistreated at work, if they're not being treated equally, if that is happening, and and they're trying to bring it, so the best way to point out that of being offended is not being discriminated against is to take people seriously when they actually point to real discrimination, right? If somebody says, hey, I lost my job because I'm a Muslim, you have to take that seriously and show that you're going to support them, so that when they say, "Oh, somebody insulted Muhammad, I'm discriminated against," and you call BS on that, they could take you more seriously because you were defending them when they were actually being discriminated against, right? You're like, yeah, no, sorry, that's not discrimination, okay? You really have to defend them when they actually, and you have to reward people and take them seriously and address it when they actually pointing to real discrimination. So you encourage real focus on real discrimination, right? And if they're actually pointing out, hey, the law is not being enforced here, you have to take that seriously, I think. But let me see what the top comment is. But yeah, my entire point was like, don't try to make it it's the most intellectual, honest thing to do sometimes here. Like, I don't know, it depends, right? Always try to do that until you get more information. Like, how are these Muslims right? Are they making a reasonable request? Are they paying attention to something that deserves attention? If you don't have all the details about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say, just say like, I don't know, it depends. These are the things that it depends on. Okay?
Yeah, there's really no shame in saying I don't know.
Yeah. Wayne is saying, how this is the top comment, is saying, how about integrating with your peers, dubbing radicals at work, dubbing the radicals at work as part of society instead of the us and them mentality. Well, I mean, okay, first of all, yeah, I agree that a lot of Muslims have this us and them mentality, but sometimes you could blame Muslim communities for creating us and a lot of times actually you could blame Muslims for creating us and them mentality. But so if you're actually being targeted and discriminated against because of a certain identity and you're responding to that, then you are not actually creating the us and them mentality in those situations. Somebody else is doing that for you and you're just responding to it, right? So we have to be like, you have to look at, again, don't treat all Muslims as an entire group of people. You have to judge this individually on one Muslim to another. And also integrating with your peer. That shouldn't be a condition for, I do suggest people integrate, but if they don't wish to integrate, that doesn't mean that it's fair now to discriminate against them. I don't think not discriminating on people should be a condition based on whether they're integrated into society or not, right? I think you should just not discriminate, even if they don't listen to you and they have separate, they want to keep their practices and cultures and everything, and their way of life and their values. You could be like, well, your values are horrible and you shouldn't keep them. You could point that out, but that doesn't mean now it's fair to discriminate against them. So I don't agree with you, like that should be the condition. But does this mean dub in the radicals at work? Is he asking them to like spy in on other like Muslims? Like, is that what he's suggesting? I don't know, because if that's what you're suggesting, Muslims are not responsible for, just because somebody is Muslim, they're not responsible for addressing radical Muslims.
Okay, so so Dobbin is an Australian slang for reporting against. So
right.
He's saying report against the radicals.
So yeah, okay, so I was right. So no, does that mean that if somebody is a radical at my work and they're an atheist or something, now I as an atheist have a higher responsibility than other people to report them? No, we all have the equal responsibility to whatever the responsibility is. I don't know what the responsibility here is, but just because somebody shares the same religion as you or lack of religion or the same ideology doesn't increase your responsibility to what you have to do against them. That's my thing. Do you guys have anything to add to this?
Nope.
Okay. Let's go. Hold up. Just loading. Okay, next news.
All right. We've got 3 more to go. We're going to keep these a little shorter.
Okay,
it's okay. Location out of USA. These expensive Jesus shoes, that's a tongue twister, which come with holy water, are selling out. So, guys, these shoes are outrageous, and I've been trying to get any information on these to see if people are wearing them or not. Their first batch has been sold out, but these are Nike Air Max 97s, and just so you know, Nike has nothing to do with these shoes. These are actually based on a Brooklyn designer. These have
Wait.
Every single shoe includes 60 cc's of holy water from the River of Jordan tucked into the sole. It's inscribed
Wow.
Matthew 14:25, which is the verse about Jesus walking on water. Each pair comes with a steel crucifix, which is and the shoes themselves are made of 100% frankincense wool. How much are these shoes going to set you back? $3,000. And they're all sold out right now. So if you don't have one,
Okay,
you're going to
this
have to
is
wait.
evil, but it's also genius. Whoever did
It's
this
amazing.
is
This
genius.
is
Like,
this is totally genius.
totally
The
genius.
best collaboration ever.
Okay, so wait, how does it not have anything to do with Nike? It has the Nike logo and everything on it.
So I want to know how they're getting away with that. Maybe they just don't care.
Wait,
don't
so
know.
this is fraud then by putting the Nike? Or does
Yeah, well, a Jewish man, the designer is a Jewish man. He said he wanted to do a collab, an interesting collab, and he thought that a collab with Christianity would be fun. And the only thing he knew about Jesus is that he walked on water. So he did this, and he
Wait, so
thought
the guy
this
that
should be a
made this
funny
is not even
collaboration.
the guy that made this is not even Christian?
Yeah, a Jew is selling this to Christians. A Jew is I mean,
Daniel Greenberg.
Oh my god, this makes it even more genius. The guy doesn't even believe in this stuff.
I mean, he's doing what many of us atheists have wanted to do: get money out of gullible religious people.
Okay, but this okay. Does Nike have a program where people could take a base shoe and like design something with it? Like, is that maybe how this worked out? Because this, I mean, this would be bigger. This would be fraud if this was. It's just not a Nike shoe and they put like a Nike logo on it. This would be fraud, and I don't think it's fraud because nobody is reporting that this is fraud. So, is there some website or something where I don't understand how this has? Like,
I honestly don't know.
okay,
I
so
don't know any of that. I just know that this is not
obviously,
Nike sold. This was
I'm-
absolutely a different design company altogether that put the shoe together. How they're getting away with it, I don't know.
Okay, so the Islamic version of this would be the water would be Zamzam water instead of the Zamzam water from Mecca. Well, actually, there's no walking on water, so I don't know what the. Oh, no. The Islamic version of this would be, the half horse, half human thing that Muhammad went to on heaven for, and it would have
We put
wings.
wings on it instead of a crucifix.
What?
Wings instead of a crucifix.
Wings is it will have wings instead of a crucifix. It will have a head of a woman on top of it, at the front, and it would also have, in the front of it, it would have a compass where it will always point to the qibla, a qibla compass right in front of it. So I don't know. Let's come up with a Jewish one and a Hindu one as well. That's pretty cool. All right, and. All right, this is pretty. I mean, this is this is pretty genius. I don't know what to say. This guy.
Him and Meta said specifically he is a Jew selling Jesus to gullible Christians.
I don't know if the guy like we can't. A lot of people are gonna assume like, oh, he's just like tricking them out of their money. He might genuinely think he's doing something nice for them. So you don't like assume like he's like, aha, I took all these Christian monies or so. Oh wow, I did something. Oh my god, I just did something that might look like a Jewish stereotype. I didn't mean that, okay? Oh, okay, I did. Okay, that was by accident. But I'm actually defending the Jew here, okay? I'm just saying that do not assume that this guy was trying to trick Christians out of their money. He might have actually genuinely thought like, hey, let me do something nice for my Christian believers and make a lot of money out of it in the meantime as well. You don't know. You don't know what people's motivations are. Don't assume if you don't know. Dickin is saying when you step in SHIT, I'm saying this because I don't want the YouTube algorithm to destroy our YouTube video. See, I'm being very good at not swearing. By the way, to all the people that are demanding that, oh, Armin is such a potty mouth, he swears so much. I'm not doing this for you. I don't think swearing is a bad thing at all. I'm not giving in to your pressure at all. Swearing is completely fine. I'm giving in to YouTube's pressure, not you pressuring me. So I'm trying not to swear because the algorithms destroy our videos whenever we do swear. So Dickin is saying when you step in SHIT, it's literally holy SHIT. Very funny. Okay, let's close this. Next news. What the hell is this?
Next news out of Iran, Sahar Sabar. Is it Tabar, Armin?
Tabar, yeah.
Okay. His extreme look resembles Angelina Jolie, arrested by Iranian authorities.
What?
Sahar became a star through Instagram after her extreme efforts to look like Angelina Jolie were put out on display. She does this to be comedic. Actually, she doesn't really look like this. Armin, are you showing the picture? Can they see that
Yeah,
picture?
this is pretty scary.
Okay,
I'm
so she
uncomfortable.
purposely paints her face to look like this, and it's extreme. A lot of this is Photoshop. If you go to this article, you can see a normal picture of her where she's a normal looking person for the most part, but she's an influencer, right? She's got over 14,000 people following her on Instagram, and BBC is reporting that Iran is actually cracking down on online influencers and bloggers, and so she's been arrested.
For what
And
crime?
what's that?
Okay, so let me just make it clear for people that can't see this, because we also have this on podcast. She looks like she has paint, like, so this is a real picture, but it made it look. She's using paint, face paint and stuff to make it look more extreme than it is, right? She looks like a mummy, like it's really weird, like the way that she looks. And I think, assuming by what she's doing, she's trying to make fun of the culture in Iran, the plastic surgery culture in Iran, right? Because plastic surgery in Iran is huge business. Like, when I lived in Iran, I didn't know. I mean, I could count the number of women that I knew that haven't had plastic surgery in one hand. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, the plastic surgeons in Iran make a lot of money. Almost every woman at least gets at least a nose surgery, at least. And many times the ones that get it done a lot, it looks really weird. Like they end up looking very weird. And I think this Instagram influencer in Iran, she's trying to mock that culture by showing some extreme features, that like big lips, nose that are pointed up. And these are the features. A lot of women, when they go to plastic surgeons, they have some celebrities, American celebrities in mind, or Western celebrities in mind that they want to look like, and they say like, I want to look like this, I want to look like that, and the doctors try their best to do that, and usually they fail, and they end up looking like a plastic doll. But I think she's trying to show extreme features of what people look like when they go through plastic surgery, as a way to mock that culture right now in Iran, the plastic surgery culture,
Absolutely.
right?
She's
So
also being the charges she's being held on are blasphemy, instigating violence. I don't know how.
what has this got to
Illegally
do?
acquiring, huh?
Is this something separate from what she's doing, like blasphemy, or like it must not have to do anything with this picture, right?
Right. Let me tell you everything that they're
Oh,
holding her on.
okay,
It's
sorry.
blasphemy, instigating violence, illegally acquiring property, insulting the country's dress code, and encouraging young people to commit corruption. So, since she's an influencer, she has a lot of followers, especially on Instagram, things like that. So these charges must come from something that she's said, or obviously something that they're making up.
This is weird. They're just making. Yeah, I think the whole Instagram has become very, very. I mean, it's popular everywhere, but in Iran, there's a lot of online, a lot of models and a lot of women on Instagram that already live in Iran have become very, very, very popular, and they have a lot of followers that treat these Instagram influencers like celebrities. And I think Iran is worried about how much influence each one of these individuals could have on a large portion of society that they don't have control over. So that might be why they're not like, okay, it's enough and it's enough. Let's go find who these influencers are and just stop this. Sometimes they actually ask for when they arrest them, they ask for their username passwords to their Instagram, and they just close the account. I've seen that happen as well. So yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, this woman seemed to be doing very creative in the way she was sending her message. If whether you agree with her or not, I mean, it's sad that she can't just be an Instagram send her. I mean, it seemed like a good message too. Like she's telling women in Iran to be just like stop doing this stuff if that's what she meant, and like be it's unlike the other influencers where a lot of women might want to look at them and they might want to change their body in unnatural ways to look like them. This influencer seems to have the opposite message. So this was good for the society, I think, in Iran, and now she's arrested, and maybe she's going to lose her account, which is very sad. All right, let's let me actually read the top comment. It's not surgery, it's makeup. She's really great at it. Yep. So Ira in the top comment is saying this is not because she did any surgeries. This is just
She did.
She did a surgery,
She did
but
do
she's
surgery.
also
Wow.
enhancing with makeup and Photoshop.
Oh, why
And
did
it's
she do
purposely
surgery
look
then?
like
She's doing surgery to point. So was I wrong that she was against surgery and stuff like that? Or-
No. I still do think that this has all been in protest.
Wow, she did surgery to protest surgery. That's a lot of commitment. Wow.
I don't know. I don't
We
know
don't
exactly.
We're
how
guessing.
it fell out
We're
like that,
guessing.
but it's
We're guessing. Okay. If we're wrong about any of this, please let us know in the comment section. Last news. Wait for it to load. Wait for it to load. Loaded. Okay, go on.
last news out of Florida. Pastor could face life in prison after recordings suggest he raped a child. Reverend Brian Fullwider was a Florida pastor. He recently worked as a radio host. He has been charged with 30 counts of sexual battery of a person younger than 18 by a position of custodial authority. Sorry, it was worded weird. The victim was 14 when the assaults began. So she secretly recorded a phone call between him and her, where he allegedly did admit to raping her from the time she was 14 to the time for years, from the time she was 14 to years on. And so the police say they have a ton of evidence and they have their case already made. But everyone around the pastor is, denying it, sticking up for him. The pastor himself is denying it. So obviously these are just allegations. We can't say he did do this, but if he did do it, he is facing life in prison.
Yeah, and again, and just I say this every time. If you're an atheist, if you're anti-religious, you might be tempted to, without actually looking into anything or seeing any of the evidence, saying, "Of course he did it. He's a pastor." Please don't be like that. Okay? You don't know. You have no idea. Even if you think it's likely, even if there's a small chance that he's not guilty, let's hope that he doesn't go to prison if he's innocent. There's always a chance that these people are innocent, even if they're pastor. Don't let your anti-religion bias get in the way of waiting for evidence before you believe in something. Okay, and yeah, if he's guilty, I hope he goes to prison, and if he's not guilty, I hope he doesn't. And please also don't assume just because there's a lot of reports of pastors molesting children or raping children, please don't assume that every pastor is a potential child molester. That is not.
Okay, I mean, here's the thing. The police said that the pastor actually admitted to a sexual relationship, that is rape, with a 14-year-old.
It says it suggests that he raped.
In the article, it says the police said
that he actually admitted.
He actually admitted to a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old.
So if he did actually admit it, and is that recording publicly available?
I'm not sure about that.
Right, because that would be very, like, imagine if you actually have the admission publicly available and the people that support him still defending him. That shows such a
right.
That was that's the power of religion, where you have an actual recording, somebody admitting that they raped a child, and your followers are still like, nope, he's innocent. Anyways, but again, try to and one more thing I always mention, we have data and statistics that suggest that religious leaders, both in Islam and Christianity, molest children on higher than average compared to other people. But again, judge that because we have data, or we have very educated guests by people that are experts, but not because you are seeing a lot of news articles about it, right? do not, I just have to add this. I know I keep repeating that. Just because you see a lot of news like this, don't be like, oh, if you're a pastor, you're more likely to rape children or stuff like that. No, don't judge it based on the number of news articles you see. Judge it based on statistic data or legitimate sources. Did you guys want to add anything?
No.
No.
I just want to also ask, tell you guys are awesome, by the way. Ali, the way you summarize the news, and Shopam, the way you add stuff that we might have missed at the end is so perfect. So you guys are awesome. It's so great to do this with both of you when we're doing the news.
Thanks, Armin.
Yeah.
Feelings mutual. Almost.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Christy is here today as well. It's great. Christy brings a lot of positive energy to the live chat whenever she's here. And Beej is, thank you so much. Beej is always here. She's great. She makes the whole moderation of it makes everything a lot easier. She sometimes points out things to us that we might have missed, and she tells people that, oh, this is how you ask questions. So thank you so much, Beej, for that as well. Mars was here. Thank you, Mars. Vibrantly, Doorknob Head. Another godless atheist. Thank you so much today with your information about Australia on Facebook. I see the last people that commented: Robert, John, Philo, Jacob. Chris is both on Facebook and on YouTube. Rogelio and Christian and everyone else. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for commenting. Please share our videos, share our content. That really, really help us. And see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.